You're listening to the BJJ Globetrotters Pirate Radio podcast, brought to you from St. Bart in the French West Indies. We talk jiu-jitsu, traveling, and people who do things a bit different in life. I am your host, Christian Graughard. Hello everyone, I am back in the basement, and this is the fourth episode of the BJJ Globetrotters Pirate Radio podcast. I actually thought I would do less episodes than this, but I got some really good interviews recently, so I kind of don't have patience to wait for them to be published, so I just throw out the episodes maybe a little bit quicker than I should. But anyway, this episode we're talking to Robert Barker from Canada, who has been traveling for more than a year at this moment, and I talked to him because he won the annual BJJ Globetrotters the BJJ Globetrotter of the Year award, which is something we kind of came up with last year. I thought there are a lot of good candidates as always, but this guy has been super active around the world. He has visited 100 academies this year alone, which I think is quite a feat. I mean, I know I did 56 academies in 5 months, and at that point I was just so burned out. There was no way I could have kept that going at that pace. So I'm quite impressed by what he's been doing, and how active he's been in visiting this many people around the world. So there's probably a really good chance, if you're in the part of the Globetrotters community, that you've run into him over the last year. So I think he was the obvious winner of this year's award. And so I talked to him, and it was actually a little bit like interviewing myself while I was on the road, because his trip is kind of similar to what I did. Maybe I went a few more places around the world than he did, but he's really out there visiting so many cities. It's ridiculous. I also ran into him at the fall camp in Germany this year, and I managed to catch a little roll and a chat with him. So here's the interview. It's a bit longer than I would have wanted it to be. It's about an hour, but we got into a good rhythm, and I think we came up with a lot of good stuff to talk about. So I hope you'll enjoy it, and this is going to be the final episode of the year. So after this, I'm heading to the winter camp in Austria, and I will see if I can record something there and come up with an episode from that. So enjoy the interview with Robert, and I will be back with you after it's over. So live from Singapore? Are you in Singapore?
Yeah, Singapore.
I'm
in Singapore.
I forgot where you are right now.
That's all right. I forget sometimes too. So
we have Robert, Rob, Bob. What's up with you North American names, and you have like several names? It always confuses me so much.
yeah. And any one name has like 6 nicknames. So me being Robert, there's Rob, Robbie, Bob, Bobby. Yeah.
What do you normally go by?
Usually just go by Rob or Robert.
Okay.
But
We'll stick with
being Bob Barker, it's kind of hard to
Bob Barker.
not to go by that. Yeah.
Bobby Barkery. Okay, so you're on the podcast because you won the BJJ Globetrotter of the Year award.
It's awesome.
All
Yeah.
right, congratulations.
So did I get a cool patch?
I don't know. We got to come up with a prize. I'm thinking before this podcast episode is over, we'll figure out something for you. I usually I would probably just have given you a camp ticket, but I think you already signed up for all the camps next year or something, right?
Well, half
Something
of
like
them,
that.
I think, yeah.
Something like that. We'll figure it out. We'll get you something cool. Yeah, the last year's winners were a couple traveling
Yeah.
like together, which I for like a year and a half, which is kind of Jonathan and Daphne, which is kind of crazy
Yeah.
to travel as a couple for that long. I would go crazy. But it's a little bit easier on your own, right? I mean, it's just
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I've always found um, it's a bit easier for me just kind of doing my own thing
Mm.
and meeting up with people here and there. Uh, I've traveled with other people at times before, just doing other travels back in Canada,
Mm.
going down to US or something. And is a bit that was a bit more stressful when you split up the tasks and
Mm.
one or two people kind of decide they're just gonna just uh, go with it and don't actually do what you wanted them to do, and then we end up waiting 4 hours to get on the ferry. Yeah, because
Right.
they didn't
And
book
it's not like
it.
you're
Yeah.
it's not like you're ever alone when you travel alone, right? I mean, I find that whenever I've traveled alone is when I've had the least time to myself, to be honest.
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially with the Globetrotters community, there's been so many times where I show up and they're like, hey, happy to have you here. And I'm just expecting to like hit a class maybe once a day at most and sleep on their couch or something. But they're like, oh, you gotta see this place and that place, and you gotta come out and eat this food. And next it's like, they're showing me around and uh, really giving the like the whole service, right?
Mm.
And that's like you're not even though I'm just traveling on my own, I'm like making new friends every stop and almost being brought into their family at sometimes, so
Right.
yeah.
Let's take this a bit from the beginning because we got a bit of a head start there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I just looked through my emails because I just like a few hours ago I was thinking about you and your trip. Um, and I remembered that like I thought like this guy contacted me like years ago, talked about some
Yeah.
trip he
Yeah.
was doing, and I looked through my emails and it's like first time you messaged me was January 22nd, 2015. I was like, oh, that's like three
Yeah.
years ago, and
Yeah.
I get a lot of emails from people who say like, hey, I'm gonna travel the world. Like, do you want to sponsor me? And I'm gonna do this and this, and I always say that sounds super cool, but I also know like statistically probably half of them are not gonna end up doing it, which is
Yeah.
understandable.
Because
It's not an easy thing. So I remember you sent me an email with a like, hey, I'm gonna go on this trip, and here's a spreadsheet with like 500 destinations, and it's like 2 years in the future, and like, good luck with that. Well, get back to me in a year and a half or 2 years or something, and let's talk about it.
yeah.
But anyway, and then like I think like every 6 months or every year or something, you drop me a message about something like questions about, hey, can you help me out with this or this, or get me in touch with this or this, and I was like, oh, this guy again. Like, how's his spreadsheet
Yeah.
evolving? and,
Yeah.
and eventually I was like, hey, wait, now he's actually on the road. It looks like he's actually doing it. I don't know if I didn't believe in it, but it just seemed incredibly ambitious and far in the future and very detailed planned, like that far ahead.
Yeah.
What's up with the planning? What's up with the 2 year planning?
Yeah. Well, actually, it was so when I actually got a hold of you, I'd already been like I had like a rough outline
Mm-hmm.
of what to do, and it had already been like set in motion for a year before that. The first year was getting my finances under order,
Mm.
and then like once I got that under wraps and was able to start saving up and all my debt and everything was paid off, and that's when I was like, hey, I should probably start researching things. And yeah, I've I'm just the man of lists, I guess. When
Well, I love
I was
spreadsheets. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love
yeah,
spreadsheets.
yeah.
It's one of my
I
big
was
interests.
I just kind of fell in love doing that when I was in Toronto as an entrepreneur. as a fashion designer. I was in retail, and I was an event coordinator for bars. So I had like a million lists of all the different tasks that need to
Hmm.
go on for each thing. And they'd make fun of me because, you brought up any one topic, and I'd pull out there were little flyers that you see at the bars. I'd write on the back of them these lists.
Right.
So I'd pull out like a stack of them out of my back pocket and be like, oh, this is for that night, this is for that thing, and going
And
through like
and now I'm making fun
so
of
I
you
just always,
for making lists for your jiu-jitsu trip.
yeah, yeah.
It's never
But
ending. It's never ending, Rob.
it is. It is. I even have a list for when I'm done traveling,
Right.
when I'm doing meeting next.
Let's get back to that later. So what did
Yeah,
you
yeah.
when did you actually leave home?
Uh, so it was November 10th, 2016.
Right.
So
So it's been like
just over a year ago.
little over a year, yeah. And
Yeah.
and you've been to so far, as I will just list this because I saw this, 23 countries, 69 cities, and 100 academies.
Yeah, it's about that. Um, well, that was just for this year.
Okay. Oh,
That's just for 2017. Yeah.
can you give the listeners like a rough overview of where you've been? I'm not asking you to list 69 cities, but like just
Yeah.
the rough route you've taken.
Yeah. So I was living out on the west coast of Canada, and I decided to go see Canada first. I traveled through Canada and left on east coast towards London, and then I spent, I think in total it was about 4 months going through the UK and Europe, down to Morocco, up to Germany and Russia, a bunch of places in between all that. Um, and then down to Thailand. Yeah, I've been in. Uh, I went over for 10 week. I went 10-day camp with friends in San Diego, then back to Southeast Asia, then through Australia and New Zealand. Yeah, in Singapore now, going to Cambodia on the weekend. Yeah.
Right. Well, it sounds like a good long trip. And so 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 what did you leave behind when you left home? Like what did you do there? Did you have a job? Where did you live? What did you do?
So I really didn't have anything other than a few personal items. That was part of how this all came around, is that I didn't have a house or a car or anything. So
Did you live on the
and
street or something?
no, I was in the military,
All right.
and I decided halfway through my contract that I wasn't going to re-sign to the
Hmm.
military. So I had a good paying job, and that was locked in for the next couple of years, and I had that long to kind of figure out what to do. And I decided, well, I don't have anything stopping me from doing, one of my life's dreams of just
Hmm.
traveling, training martial arts. So yeah, so
So
that's
what?
done that.
So how did you finance this through? I I've never been in the military. I know nothing about it. How does this work?
Uh,
How did you make this happen? This is what everybody wants to know.
uh, yeah, so being, a starving artist in Toronto, I got pretty good at nickel and diming everything
Hmm.
and keeping track of all my finances. And
Did you make any lists about it? Or?
yeah, yeah, I did. Um, I would actually have post-it notes on my laptop of like all my bills and when during the month they were due and stuff. But no, so when I wrote it all down and I realized, other than all the, extra spending I'm doing, I only was actually, I could live off of like 48% of my pay.
Mm.
So I just put away half my pay each paycheck,
Hmm.
and just slowly built it up over a year. So It was about a year and a half of savings, and then by the time my contract was done, I was ready to go out the door, and like literally, I had my place packed up and put in storage during my last week, and then the very next day I was on the road.
Right. Nice. Well, I think, yeah, I think that if you actually sit down and actually go through like what you spent money on, like like normal people spend money on, you'd find that you don't actually need that much. I mean, you can very
No,
quickly spend a lot of money on a lot of stupid shit that you don't need. That's like
yeah,
unnecessary, or you can make yourself, or yeah. I think I read there's a book I once read. It's also a blog. There's a book for the lazy people who don't want to browse through the blog. It's called, I don't know if you read it. It's called Early Retirement Extreme. Have you seen that one? Have you read that one?
I've seen it, but I haven't actually read it.
Right,
No,
highly recommend it. It's like, but
yeah,
that's like the absolute extreme version of simple living, for with retirement kind of as the
yeah,
mission. I really enjoyed that book. That's one of my favorite books. I highly recommend it for everyone. Early Retirement Extreme. I also think it's like earlyretirementextreme.com or something, a blog. But the blog is a little bit less organized. The book is cheap, and that has some really interesting things on saving money. It's like ridiculous. The guy refuses to buy a washing machine, so he puts all his clothes in like some kind of like plastic box in his car, and makes his own detergent and puts it in there with water. And then whenever he's going to drive somewhere, is in his car, and he lives like in a really rural area, so that'll wash his clothes, like stuff like that. But it's super extreme, but there's a lot of interesting things to take from it. It definitely inspired me a lot to change my view on consuming and just spending money, and that, like, to save up money for doing stuff like you and I have been doing. Anyway, back to
yeah.
you. Back to you. Did you ever
Yeah.
did you ever travel
Sorry.
before this, or
Well, I mean, I, I was in the military, so I was
right?
used to living out of a bag.
Okay.
Um, and but yeah, when I started researching, like when I decided this plan, um, I was like, well, I should probably experiment and actually
Mm-hmm.
travel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've backpacked and I've hiked and I've camped, and I've lived out of a backpack, like out of a rucksack for the military, for a few years. So I'm okay with that. But
Mm-hmm.
um, actually bringing training clothes and everything I need. So I just when I had time off, I'd use my leave up and go. Like I went to Tokyo for 8 days because I saw a ticket, like they had a sale for flights there. So I just picked up a hostel and went off and learned how to navigate through one of the most complex cities, I guess.
I think it is, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. And then yeah, I did a little short trips like down the West Coast and into US and stuff. And then after you do like maybe 3 weeks on the road of doing that, um, you know by then if you've brought too much or
Right.
how to fix it up and yeah.
So
So,
how many
but yeah,
how many kilos are you traveling with at the moment after 1 year?
uh, after 1 year right now, I'm down to about 25, I think.
Kilos or pounds?
Yeah,
Oh, that's a lot.
kilos. Yeah.
It depends on where you
Yeah.
go, of course. I think I mostly did
Um,
like warm places. I had 14 kilos.
yeah,
I
and
also
that's
only use one pair of underwear ever.
see, yeah, I have like probably 5 days of clothes, and I
Right.
do have a pair of pants and a hoodie in there.
Right.
So
I think I had
yeah,
like
but
3 t-shirts. That was about it. Like 3 t-shirts, one pair of pants, and like one hoodie, and that was it. Few socks.
yeah, and I've thought about doing that too, of just cutting it down even more, or like, if I ever do this again, just go off on what I can do for a carry on.
Right.
But Yeah.
That
When I
would be
started, I brought way too much.
that would be pretty. Yeah, that's usual. That would be pretty hardcore to do like around the world jiu-jitsu trip on carry on. Like I challenge anyone out there
Yeah.
to do that. That could definitely win. If you do that for a year, you definitely get the Globetrotter of the Year award.
Like you're looking at like, one gi and maybe another day's worth of clothes, and that's it.
Well, I did my trip 5 months with just one gi, but so
Yeah.
I just did gi and then no gi. That was kind of
Yeah.
it worked out completely fine.
But
There's
it's the other, not having anything else.
yeah.
Here's
I also carried a huge camera. That was probably the heaviest thing I carried, and like an iPad 1, which is also kind of big. Anyway, so do you do anything spontaneous on your trip in terms of itinerary, or do you still have everything planned for the next like 5 years?
so the itinerary is all rough. It's just kind of to help keep me focused
All
and
right.
help plan out things for like the next stop, which will be cheapest. But that's changed. Like I think I'm on draft 5, but it's really like draft 15. But but yeah, I've done a few things like before of my first camp when I went to Heidelberg. I was in Romania. I was in Bucharest, and I decided, I was kind of feeling a little under the weather, so I didn't want to get sick or anything, or right before the camp. So I decided to rest. And a girl there was like, "Well, I'm going up to Bram and seeing the castles up there. Want to come along?" And I'm leaving tomorrow morning. And I said, "Sure, let's go." And so yeah, took off next day. Went up there for I think 2 3 days.
I think for me, that's been some of the best experiences I had. If I just completely let go and just went on whatever opportunity showed up, preferably to a place that I knew nothing about and never been, like that,
Yeah,
like you did with the castle thing there.
yeah, that's really cool. Seeing Dracula's castle and walking out around this cool, very tourist like
Hmm.
small town, but it's way up, away from the city, surrounded by just miles of mountains, right? So it's kind of cool.
Do you So how do you plan your like? How do you plan where to go on your trip? How do you make your itinerary?
So there was I've written about it a bit, how there was a few places I wanted to go to, and then I just kind of connected the dots. And like for Europe, like I can only be there 3 months at a time for um the visa, I guess, within the EU. So it's kind of plan that out, make sure I'm not overstaying.
Hmm.
Um, for now, like now that I'm in Southeast Asia, I've used Google Flights. Actually, their map is a pretty helpful tool. So I'll be like, well, if I'm gonna fly out, say if I was to fly, like, I'm flying out Friday, um, and I was to put in, leaving Singapore on Friday, going to somewhere, like I'm going to Cambodia, but I have to say if I wanted to go to um or to the Philippines or something, to like Manila, I can I'll show you the price, but there's a map and you can see on that same day um what the prices are around the area
Right.
um from leaving Singapore. So I've done that to kind of help plan how I'll go around and hit all the places that I want to see. Uh, but then they'll change depending on if people are around to stay with, or if other friends want to meet up at different times.
And like,
Um,
how do you decide on where you want to go?
I don't, well, I want to go everywhere really.
Right.
So if there's if there's a gym and there's a spot someone's offering for me to crash at, or if I can find a cheap enough hostel, or if a friend says, hey, I want to go on a vacation, around this spot at this time, will you be there? I'll change my plans to to hit those places.
Right. Did you get a lot of connections from the Globetrotters Facebook group at all? I saw you did a few
Oh,
posts
definitely.
there. They were kind of general. I think usually people have more success if they make like more specific posts, like I will be in this and this city that
Yeah,
month. What do you recommend? But you're also like I will be everywhere. Where should I
yeah.
go?
Well, I'll post like my last post was kind of like my itinerary for the rest of the year, saying I'm gonna be here in Singapore and then in Cambodia and stuff. I think if I would just do one place at a time, it usually helps out better.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, in terms of like gyms, like there's no shortage of help. You ever just put a place up on the community, and people are like, someone would have at least someone from a club there. Um, if not, have already trained there themselves. Um, in terms of finding like places to stay with, it's probably about half my stops, to be honest, which
Mm.
is kind of, you know, um, like from my own friends from my club and martial arts, or just uh, friends of mine that have traveled themselves, and with um, uh, the Globetrotters, the 6 weeks that I did across um, Australia and in New Zealand, I think I only stayed in uh, two uh, two hostels and one Airbnb. So
Was the rest through the Globetrotters network or?
yeah, mostly through Globetrotters, but I had
Uh-huh.
a few friends in New Zealand to meet up with. So
Oh, that's cool. I sit at my computer and I put so much time and like thought into stuff like mat surfing or building this network, but I rarely actually see it in action. I never rarely hear about people who actually use the mat surfing and met people or stayed with someone. So it's for me it's really cool to hear when it actually works, because I just sit here and put it out there and hope that it works.
yeah, like I was just talking to someone about it the other night, about how I've been surprised when I meet up with someone and they say, I'm the first person, or they've only had like a couple people come by.
Right.
Um, it's almost like maybe people forget about it when they're looking, so they just do a quick like post on the group and
Right.
not look at the map.
Yeah.
I'm always looking at the map,
All
and
right.
then
Well, yeah,
then I
the
go to
the Facebook group is that's the curse of social media, is
yeah,
that it's it's perceived to be easier just to ask than actually look for something. Like
yeah,
so
yeah,
that's the challenge always for me to to actually direct people to the website where all the information is right there. But I guess that's how the world works at the moment. Is you just
yeah,
write an answer, shout it out, and then write a
yeah,
question. Sorry, and then you get an answer instead of looking
yeah.
for it. You could that's like typical. Did you ever see that post I made about like selling pies?
Yes, yes.
It's so real. It's like if you look at
Yeah,
the Globetrotters Instagram, like very often if I post like there's a picture like from a camp. Okay, this camp is announced. It's this and this date. Check out this page for more information. And all the questions are
yeah,
like, when is it? Where is it? How much does it
yeah.
cost? How do I get there? Does this include a flight ticket? Like, come on. But I guess that's my job, for some
Well,
reason.
there's what I like on the Facebook group is people at least once a month, someone asks about Tokyo.
Right, Tokyo,
And
Amsterdam, or Paris.
yeah,
But okay, to
and
be fair, the search function in Facebook's groups is really like it's not easy to find, and you don't really think about it. I mean,
Yeah, they moved it. It used to be really prominent right above the
Yeah,
top of the feed, and now it's off to the side now.
yeah.
But it
Well, fair
but it's
enough.
funny. It's funny because like I look forward to it when someone posts asking about Tokyo because you know Aaron is gonna post like
Aaron,
some kind
we
of
know you're
joke.
listening. We know you're listening.
Yeah, and he's like, no, there's nothing here. You know?
He's got Tokyo jokes lined up for the next 2 years
Oh
of
yeah,
Facebook group posts.
yeah,
So you also
yeah,
went to the fall camp in Heidelberg in Germany
yeah,
this year,
yeah.
and I remember when at the ending of the camp, I got the idea of kind of introducing people at the camp. Like when we did the big group picture, I introduced those who were traveling. I think at least for myself, the camps are super valuable in terms of like just connections in general, just meeting people. And I think especially I've seen a lot of people traveling, going through the camps, and then afterwards they have like a bunch of connections of places to go. Did you ever meet up with anyone after the camps or?
Um, did I? Not yet. A lot of the people that I met were in Europe, and that was like the end of
Oh
my
yes, that's
Europe
right. You were
trip.
leaving Europe there.
Yeah. So I haven't been able like I'll be going back in March and hoping to meet up with like hit a few of those places
Mm.
that those people that I met there. But yeah, they definitely have we've been keeping in contact. Like I forget, I think like it was something like 100 people by the end of the week I added on Facebook.
Right.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
How did
Uh,
how did your trip evolve like over the last year or so? Did you feel like it changed in any way, or have you just
um
been following your list from home, like point to
well
point?
yeah, it's changed. Yeah, it's changed a few times. Um like adding the camp in wasn't originally in there, as well as the camp with my friend going to San Diego. That was like uh, we he started talking about. I was already on the road, and
Mm.
then I kind of had it there hovering there for a while, and finally decided, well, no, I have to, and that totally changed how I was going to go and deal like see um, Australia and Southeast Asia and everything. But I figured if I want to go to San Diego again, it'd be best to go with a group of people rather than try and go by myself. It's not a cheap place, and it'd be a lot more fun spending my money with friends than on my own. So,
Do you feel that I'm thinking I did my trip. I did 5 months around the world, and I managed to, just I didn't have anything like Globetrotters and stuff back then. Um, so what I basically did was I just posted everywhere and said like I will teach for food and shelter. I was uh, I was a brown belt at the time, and while I know a bunch of white belts who've been doing similar things, I think obviously it was a little bit easier for me because I had some value to bring to the places I visited. One, in terms of I could teach classes for free, and also I was probably one of the first people to have like a quality blog about something like this, and I got a lot of exposure. So I said, okay, if I'll come to your gym and I'll take some nice pictures, and you have some exposure to the world in one way or the other, and I'll teach a bit for free. Can I stay on your couch? And that was like an easy deal to do anywhere. Like you're a relative beginner in jiu-jitsu. You're blue belt, right? I,
yeah,
I
blue belt.
don't even remember. Where do you feel like? Do you think that's different for you in that sense?
Well, I've never really looked to be, um, you know, teaching, in exchange or whatever. Um, but like I do send the clubs a message telling them who I am and where I'm from and what I'm doing and a link to my blog, um, which for whatever reasons it seems to work pretty well. They seem uh, usually pretty happy to have a traveler coming in to drop by. Some places though, yeah, I have. like even in as a like a senior blue belt, I have had to like I have been kind of put on the spot to teach some classes.
Right.
Um, and That's one thing that was actually new to me. I mean, our instructors back home were purple or brown belts. They got their black belts this year. Um, so there was I was never the senior guy teaching a class back home. I'd help out with the white belts coming in, like new people coming in, and helping them out with the basics. But I've never actually taught a class until I started traveling, and then you get into some places that are about out out in the middle of nowheres or just a small club in general, and they look to me and like, okay, so what are you going to show us?
Right.
And I'm
Well,
like,
I think
oh,
it's not like you don't have to be a 15-year black belt in order to be able to retain information. Like if you travel around the world to
no,
100 academies, you'll pick up some
yeah,
stuff. And just because you're a kind of a relatively a beginner in the sport doesn't mean you can't remember it and show it to someone else. I mean, that would be kind of a strange thing to assume, but I think that is being assumed automatically in this world, like
yeah,
of jiu-jitsu. I mean, I learn,
yeah.
I learn, I learn a
I
bunch of
see.
stuff from all levels. Like I watch
Mhm.
kids do something, or beginners, or let some people play their game against me, and then I see what they kind of do, and I think you can learn from everyone definitely.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a ever-changing game out there, right? And everyone's own little take on it. There's always something to take from that. So, yeah, I'm just enjoying seeing everything from different views. And I kind of pick up little things for myself on the way. And um, yeah, whenever I'm asked to show something, it's usually just what I've found that's worked for me as for basics, right?
Right.
And they the last place I was at when I was showing them that was something I've been working on for the last while. It was just the way I was putting it together, I guess, was different to them. So to them, that was like, a big thing, seeing it, a move they knew, but in a different way.
Right.
So
I'm trying to think if I learned something from rolling with you in Germany, but I was just so tired that I think I was just kind
yeah,
of just surviving through the open mats there. I was exhausted.
yeah, and we didn't roll too much, to be honest.
That's
Um,
normal.
but
Like at that camp there were 270 people who wanted to roll
yeah,
with me, so I try to go few
exactly.
minutes with as many as possible. And I'm
Yeah,
not 21 anymore, so
yeah,
um,
yeah. The pressure must be on for you at open mat when you walk onto the mats there.
well, not pressure as in to perform, but pressure as
No,
in to live up to everybody want to have a go, which I'd
yeah,
love to. I wish I could roll with everyone, but it's just impossible. At
yeah,
the bigger camps, even if there's just 200 people, you roll 3 minutes with everyone. That's like 600. That's like 10 hours of rolling nonstop with no breaks. It's like that's
yeah,
impossible in a week, even so.
yeah,
I try my best to get through as many as possible, and then sometimes I just hate to say no to people, but sometimes I have to if I just can't stand my legs.
yeah.
So trying, but that's well, I guess that's a kind of a luxury problem. Have too many training partners. So you've been on the road for more than a year now, and how long you plan to travel?
Yeah, so it's been just over 13 months. And depending on how my finances hold out, uh, this could go until the at least until the end of March.
Right.
Hopefully, I can stretch it and cover cover April as well. So I'll be home start of May. So it'll give me a couple weeks to rest up before the US camp. So
So that's gonna be total like a year and a half or something.
Yeah, it'll be about a year and a half, yeah.
Right. Do you ever feel lonely on the road? Like, I know you're surrounded by people, but I had that feeling a lot. Like, I was, like 1,000 people around you all the time, like socializing. But sometimes I just got overwhelmed by like a crazy feeling of loneliness. It's like hostel bed or something. I just wanted to go home.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been a few of those times where I'm at the hostel in the common room, and everyone else is kind of in a group, like
Mm,
in groups,
mm.
talking away. And I'm just kind of the one guy in the corner on his computer.
Right.
Um, I forget. There's been a few times though where I've been checking out sites, and that's when it gets kind of really annoying. That you're walking around town and you see this one tourist site, and you realize it's all couples on vacation around you.
Right.
I took a picture actually on when I was up the Eiffel Tower, and there's this, I don't know, I think I saw four different people propose, and all these couples are getting pictures together, and I'm walking down the stairs, leaving the tower, thinking like, I think I'm the only single guy here.
Right.
And I look over, and there's a pair of pigeons nestled up together.
No.
And I was like, even the birds are here on dates. Like, yeah,
Yeah. But I remember, I think maybe it's the contrast of, traveling, like constantly being socially overwhelmed through like jiu-jitsu training, meeting people, and then on the other hand, like the switch suddenly just turns off, like as soon as you leave the academy or like done, having dinner with people, and then you're alone in like a hostel common room or like a airplane or something. I was just overwhelmed with like a feeling in my stomach of just being like super alone, and I just like wanted to get home to my bed sometimes. Obviously, the feeling kind of disappeared quickly, but I just remember that a
yeah,
lot from, especially after a while. Like when you kind of let go of your feeling of your sense of home. When everywhere I went suddenly felt like home, but still, I felt like I was, just floating around in free space. No,
yeah. I feel that a few times when I get to a club that is really welcoming. Like, I guess you new home. I'm only there for a couple days, and only hit like two or three classes with them. But we hang out and show me around town, and you feel like you're part of the community, and then now you're off to the next spot, right?
and you're
So
probably
yeah,
not gonna be back there in like years.
yeah, exactly, right? So it's
It's
like
like every 5 days you lose all your best friends.
yeah.
I think that might be the feeling. That might be what
Yeah,
triggers it.
it does though. There are times where I'm like, oh, I really wish I get to like see these people again. And then I realize like, when I go home, like once this summer's over, like, well, I guess next summer is over, that's pretty much going to be the end of my traveling for a while.
Mm.
So yeah,
Yeah, I think I just realized that right now is that it's probably like meeting so many people and just connecting so well with so many people, and then you just let go of them immediately, like, and doing that over and over again for months and months and months. That kind of triggers some chemicals in the brain. Probably it made me really depressed like a few times. I remember.
yeah, it's like, you're going through the post camp blues over and over again,
That's
right?
right. It's the post camp
Um,
blues.
yeah,
It's a non-stop life of post camp blues. Oh,
yeah,
how sad. I
yeah,
usually fix that here by just making new camps all the time, but
yeah, yeah,
I fix that for myself at least.
yeah.
Do you feel are you tired like after all this traveling? I just
At
remember like
times,
I just remember like overwhelming exhaustion sometimes. Like I think it was both like physical from training all the time, of course, but also like just mentally exhausted from moving around and like constant change of scenery and people and.
At times I've felt pretty exhausted, like, I obviously like physical exhaustion at times,
Mm,
but mentally, you kind of feel burnt out, and I'll take a day to myself. Um, Especially when I'm doing like I'm trying to do my blog, or there's some decent internet, so I'm trying to work on some videos I have,
mm,
or whatever, right? But yeah, in general, like I don't know, I have just I guess maybe it's just because uh this is a passion of just wanting to go and see world. I'm always pretty excited when I get the places like Singapore, or like, that was it's a pretty high, like, talked about city,
mm,
and place to see. And I had a friend here I hadn't seen in years that I'm staying with. So yeah, when I got here, I was like really excited to go out and see everything, and hang out, and so I'm not really ever, um there's very few times I'd say I just say, like, I get to a place and, like, I don't want to go out. I don't,
mm,
I might have like a day, I'm like, okay, I need a rest because I'm tired. But um yeah, I know it doesn't, it seems overwhelming at times,
mm.
definitely.
Do you think you're desensitized to experiences like beautiful places or people or something when you get too much of it?
No, like, things just, I get overwhelmed quite easily, I guess. I don't know. Like, I was walking through the Marina Gardens here, the super trees, um, and you know, uh, this is like so overwhelmed because I've seen these pictures online, and
Right.
they've used them for like movies and stuff, right? And I was like, wow, I'm here, like, it's things like that that um keep me going. That I don't think I get desensitized. Like,
Mm,
I love going out looking for old buildings, and like, the old architecture. She's usually, the old church in the town. But yeah, uh, I wouldn't say I'm, like, desensitized. I love seeing everything, right?
right. I think for me it's been coming and going a little bit. Like I just remember one specific, like at the end of my 5 months trip, I arrived in Rio de Janeiro, and I was like,
Mm.
I think I was a bit sick, tired. I had no money left, and I was like, oh, another beautiful city and another tropical beach. I'm like, couldn't be bothered. It was just a few days, but I was like, oh, I just want a
Yeah,
regular
whenever you're
supermarket where I know where to find stuff. That was what I dreamed about at that point. But
Yeah, I remember there's a part in your book talking about hiking up that hill too,
mm,
and just see the view, and you didn't want to do it, but you still did.
at some point I think it's maybe just automatic. It's like I feel like I made kind of an agreement with myself that I had to push myself and experience as much as possible, and then even if I didn't want to, I was just like, shit, I have to because I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think weird stuff happens when you travel for that long, and I mean, do you feel like um, this is like cliche, but also obviously a yes. Do you feel like you changed on this trip? Like who is the guy
Um,
who is the guy coming home compared to the guy who left? Because I can, for myself, I don't recognize the guy I left at home in Denmark, like 2011 when I left on my trip. Like I feel like I'm living two different lives in some strange way.
yeah.
Not sure you feel the same, obviously, but
Yeah, I think so. Like, um, I was thinking about this the other day because I noticed like a huge change just in the plan, like the research and planning and like preparing for this trip before I ever actually left the door. That was actually one of the reasons why this all started, was because I wanted to change, my life as where I was. Um, you know, but
What did you
when
want to change? What did you want to
well,
change about yourself?
there was a lot of negative outlook and stress from work that I was kind of bringing into personal life, right?
Like
So
from military or?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So that's when I quit drinking and started doing more jujitsu and decided to just, go out and train and travel and yeah.
but what was the stressful part of your job and your life there?
Um, it's yeah, it's not a like it's kind of a thankless job, I guess you could say, because it's always more training to do, right? There's
Mm.
always more maintenance or more work to do, um, and so you're constantly on the that kind of like you have to be prepared, you have to be ready, you have to keep going, and it this kind of breeds a negative atmosphere, right? And kind of um, builds on everyone. And like I noticed, when I was training, like going out to club, I was like, the guys here are a lot more happier than the guys I work with,
Mm.
right? Um, so yeah, when you start realizing like, yeah, that's that job, really does breed a lot of negative energy into your life.
Right.
You need to deal with that, right? Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was where I quit drinking and started training more and just kind of changing and an outlook on life of actually wanting to get out and do more things, right?
Mm.
And then once I was done the military, once I was out on the road, um, and I'm realizing, I don't have any stress in my life.
Mm. Right.
Now the stress in my life is, dealing with the local transit to get to club to class on time, or, you know, um, I guess the only real stress I have now is dealing with airports because they're always a pain in the ass.
They are, yeah, definitely. There are probably a lot of people in your situation who didn't or just never managed to break out of it like you did. Huh?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of people who decided that just sticking with drinking was the better of the two options. Um, which is actually the funny thing was when I decided I would just quit drinking, I said, I told the guys we're sitting around talking, and I said, you know what, I'm not gonna drink for this month. And one of my superiors this comes up to me and asks me like, "Hey, is there a problem? Do we need to talk?" And I'm like, "No, I decided I'm just gonna be sober for a while now," which is funny because
If
you
that is a
can't.
problem, then there's definitely something wrong with the work environment.
Well, that's the thing, right? There's like you can go in every Monday with stories about being like blackout drunk and just being an idiot
Mm.
on the weekend, and they think it's just that's the way people blow off steam. But if you say, "Hey, I'm gonna stop drinking for a while," then they think, well, maybe you got yourself into a bit too much of a problem
Mm.
and need some help. But I was like, no, I'm just cutting it off before it becomes that, right? Like,
Right. Did you
um,
did you see it like as a problem down the road or something? You kind of predicted it, or
yeah, like you can, I used to work bars in Toronto, and then growing up on an army base, before that, like and then being in the military, you see a lot of recurring patterns, and you can see how you get sucked into that kind of
mm.
a life. Not that everyone's like that, but it's there, right?
Right.
It's there in the bars in the cities. I have friends that I see in Toronto. Their go-to is just stressful job rather than look for a job that doesn't stress me out. I'm just gonna go drink every weekend,
Right.
right? So
Yeah, I think you made a good decision there. I kind of like purposefully or not stopped drinking other than at the camps, which will limit me to like 10 times a year or something maximum. Which is kind of nice. It feels really good. Yeah, I enjoy that.
and I mean, yeah, yeah. I guess the rest of the month you would need a bit of a rest from the camp, anyways.
Oh
So
yeah, by far. And I mean, there's you don't really go out here anyway. There's no way to get back unless you want to walk over a fucking mountain. So so that makes it easy anyway. So yeah. So what now? What's next? What does the future hold? When you gonna get back from the real world to Canada
yeah.
to your
Yes.
old to the Matrix? How are you ever gonna fit in after this?
Um, yeah, fitting in. My plan is just to keep busy when I get back.
See,
Um,
that's what I did, and then I completely burned out on that. I was like
yeah,
super over busy. I just traveled every weekend after I got home. I was like, can't stop now, can't stop now, can't stop and think about things. Yeah. Anyway,
well, yeah, because like my friend, he backpacked around the world for a year and was just kind of hiking trails and mountains and stuff. And he now is it's been he met a girl and he's living in New Zealand now. And he visited me near the end of that, just before stopping. And so me now being out for a year, backpacking, him at home for a year after all that, we were talking about that, and he still has that urge to just want to go out there
mm,
and see other things he didn't see before and stuff. Um, but he said, like, no, that was one of his things was um, being like it takes a bit to get used to it getting back home because you just have that urge to go out and see and explore and
it's very
um,
difficult. It's like it's very. I don't know
yeah,
anyone who's been on long trips like that who didn't come home and felt completely out of place and like didn't know, couldn't sit still. It's really difficult to come back and then realize that oh, everything is just like when I left. Like because
yeah,
I know it's cliche again, but you change a lot doing stuff like that, and then you come home and you realize, oh, everything's the same. People still, stand in line in the same supermarkets, and it's still raining, and like nothing has changed. It's really difficult to accept that that all your kind of your glowing, wonderful feeling of having seen the world and all that stuff is not there anymore where you're now supposed to live. So,
yeah. I've always kind of felt a bit on the outside anyways
mm.
with where I grew up and lived and stuff. And I kind of got a bit of that feeling when I went back to visit my brother in Toronto, and I'm no longer the big party guy, and uh, I go and visit my friends at the bars and realize I've been away for 8 years and still the same people and the same outfits going to the
Mhm.
same bar nights that were doing that the whole 10 years I was living there.
Mm.
It's 20 years, and they're, yeah,
But when you're in it,
yeah,
you don't notice that things stay the same for years and years and years. It's just kind of a, I have no idea what I did from I was 20 to I was 30. Really, I don't know. It was like I just did the same thing every year.
yeah, it feels like that too for me. The 10 years I lived in Toronto, when I think about all the work I did
Mm.
and being an artist and an entrepreneur, that I did so much work. But then when I think about personal life, and I'm like, what was I doing? Like
Right.
other than, I was just doing this thing, this like a almost like an autopilot, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Just
that's
doing
the
this
word, definitely.
little,
Autopilot.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so when I get home, and I hit those camps for the summer, um, in the fall, I'll be going back to school, third time's a charm. Um, I'll be going back for a degree in hospitality and tourism,
Right.
and
Nice.
working on my goals to be in that industry. So
That sounds
I,
like
I figure,
a good change from drinking military,
yeah,
alcoholic
yeah,
military.
yeah. It's kind of funny because if you look at it, like, you know, being a fashion designer in Toronto and then an engineer in the military, and then this backpacking, jujitsu traveler. It's
Right.
yeah, it's a eclectic life story I have right now.
Well, it's good to do something different, you know? You only have one life, or at
Yeah,
least that's what I believe. So,
yeah. Well, we'll never really know until,
no, let's not figure it out right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are way over time, but it was really nice to talk to you.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
Um, Other than thanking you for the community you've created and making all this, a possible thing.
Stop. Thank someone else. Come up with something else.
Go with something else.
No, you're the best. No, you're the best. No, you're the
Yeah.
best.
Well, I would actually like to shout out to all my friends back home, my home club in Victoria, BC, Fear Studio. They've been kind of the driving force to, sending me messages online saying, where are you now? Been reading your posts, so awesome, and everyone else that's been reading my blog and sending kind messages. It's when you have a down day and you read a little like way to go, it really picks you up. So yeah, thanks to all those people out there.
All right, so let's wrap this up. It was nice to talk to you, and again, congratulations on being the BJJ Globetrotter of the Year, whatever that means. I'm not 100% sure right now. Oh shit! I promise we'll come up with a prize for you. I can look around my basement. I have a few patches laying around here. Something. No, we'll figure something out. Okay, let
Yeah.
me. I'll do some kind of surprise for you at whatever next camp you show up at. I'll rent you like a Segway for the week or something, or like a golf cart. You coming to the US camp?
I'll be at the US camp.
You're gonna get your own golf cart. I'm saying it now. Here it is. Now it's official. Rob Barger won 1 week use of a golf cart at the US camp. I'm gonna rent one for you. There you go. That's a great price. You're gonna be really happy with that. I'm gonna put your name on it on the license plate.
Awesome.
Right. Okay. I will see you in Maine in May. It's
Yeah.
end of May, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'll see you there. And
Yeah.
I don't know when this is gonna be published, but Merry Christmas or whatever you guys say. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm Scandinavian. We only believe in the God of Thunder and stuff like that. All right, Rob. Nice talking to you. Thanks for taking your time.
You too.
Okay.
Yeah,
See you, man.
thanks.
Bye. So that wraps up the 4th episode of the podcast. As always, if you have any feedback or ideas for the podcast, anything you want me to talk about, any people you want me to put on the show, feel free to shoot me an email on mail@bjjglobetrotters.com, and I'll be most happy to get back to you. I get the email right in my pocket, and I usually answer right away. I'm really bad at not answering emails right away, so shoot me an email if you have anything you would like to hear on the podcast. As always, if you want to subscribe to this podcast, you can find it on iTunes, or just go to bjjglobetrotters.com/podcast. And anything else you want to know about BJJ Globetrotters, it's bjjglobetrotters.com. I would like to thank you for a great 2017 with the BJJ Globetrotters, and I am really excited to see what next year is going to bring. I think there are some great projects on the poster for next year, and I have a lot of good ideas that I want to see if I can execute, and hopefully it involves you in one way or the other. So happy New Year! Don't blow off any fingers with homemade fireworks, and I will see you next year.